Our planet will survive. No!
14 ruthlessly destructive Transformers movie villains explored in detail. When the Transformers franchise first came up, nobody could imagine that it would turn into such a phenomenal success. The battle of the sentient, living, autonomous robots called the Autobots and Decepticons caught the fancy of the fans. The film series comprises 6 films so far, and we are waiting for the 7th, titled Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, which is slated for a 2022 release. The Transformers series has been blessed with some of the most badass villains that you can find. The movies have always introduced new threats to the world, and while most of these villains are Decepticons, all of them aren't. As we wait for the next Transformers movie, let us take a quick look at some of the most dreaded antagonists that we saw so far. In this video, we are mostly restricting ourselves to the movie versions of these characters, so that Transformers fans can brace themselves for a fun ride. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
I will kill you!
Quintessa. This Cybertronian sorceress also goes by the name the Great Deceiver, and she claims to be the creator of the Cybertronian race. She titles herself the Prime of Life and is the creator of Optimus Prime.
I made you.
Quintessa is certainly one of the strongest villains in Transformers lore, and she planned to destroy the Earth by using Optimus himself.
Earth will die, and your world will be reborn.
She is proud of her creation and regards Optimus as her finest work. She is shown to be somewhat benevolent and collected, but the initial portrayal of her character soon undergoes a change. She becomes cold-hearted, vengeful, and manipulative, and she doesn't hesitate to drain the energy from the Earth to restore Cybertron.
Oh, you're weightless.
Quintessa is a powerful sorceress, and she firmly believes that her actions are in the best interests of Cybertron. You could say she is somewhat deluded, but her treacherous ways point to a shrewd mind. In the course of time, we get to know that her true goal is to destroy Unicron, one of the ancient enemies of Cybertron. Her origin is quite mysterious, and her true persona is revealed when the 12 Cybertronian Knights learn that she is not quite what she seems to be. For her, Earth is no more than a dormant body of Unicron, and loss of lives doesn't bother her at all. The Cybertronian Knights did not buy into her rhetoric and rebelled against her. She was infuriated by this mutiny, but the Knights managed to steal the technology that could drain the energy. They hid it on Earth, and soon her pride for Optimus changes into hate. In Transformers: The Last Knight, she used the space bridge warp to transport herself along with her soldiers to Earth. She puts Optimus in a trance-like state, and later Bumblebee snaps him out of it.
What have I done?
Quintessa was quite a daunting villain, and the first major female villain in the Transformers film franchise. Some say that there is a resemblance to Medusa from Greek mythology in this character, and we don't think it is a far stretch. Devastator. Just like his name suggests, Devastator is an agent of devastation. He is way too powerful, and his raw violence adds to his destroying tendencies. He is a gigantic man-eating Decepticon combiner, and he is made up of several Constructicons. However, Devastator has one major drawback. He is not the smartest of guys, and his limited mental capacity makes him useful only for genocidal purposes. If you remember the Battle of Egypt, where the Autobots tried to thwart the Fallen from destroying the sun, Devastator played a major role. He was used effectively in the conflict, and his supreme strength came in handy. Among his various abilities, he can create a powerful gravity well by producing an artificial black hole with his vortex grinder. It is located in his mouth, and once the process is complete, nearby objects are sucked into his jaw like a vacuuming action. He then devours them in no time. Besides the vortex grinder, he also has other lethal weapons like missile launchers, powerful guns, and rockets. Megatron ordered him to destroy Mudflap and Skids during the battle, and he started off by devouring everything in sight. Even inanimate things like a large van and the ground went in his mouth, and he managed to consume Mudflap whole after he failed to hold on. He seemed disgusted after consuming an Autobot, but there was a nasty surprise in store for him. Mudflap was not dead, and he punched his way out. This counterattack infuriated Devastator, and he started firing random missiles targeting Mudflap. But Mudflap landed a powerful strike in his face, and the massive blast wreaked Devastator for good. Sentinel Prime. If Leonard Nimoy is assigned to play a character, you could expect some complications around it, and Sentinel Prime is easily one of the most challenging ones you will find in the Transformers movies. This Autobot commander turned out to be a double agent, and the betrayal stemmed from his unshakable loyalty towards Cybertron. He was shown to be a determined leader, and he was clear in his head regarding the position of his race in the universe. Sentinel Prime had an aura around him that commanded respect, and he was a fierce warrior to back it up. He was so skilled in combat that he could get the better of Optimus in a direct fight.
Why, Sentinel, why? For Cybertron, for our home.
His origins trace him back to the direct descendant of the first Cybertronian Primus. He knew all about the history of their species, and he was one of the last surviving Primes. He commanded the Autobots and then led a mission to find a new son for Cybertron. He handed over the charge to Optimus Prime, and he even mentored him for some time.
No longer your teacher, Optimus. You are mine.
This gritty commander was tasked with the protection of a secret weapon called the Pillars. He believed that it had the potential to save their dying planet, and his ultimate goal is to revive Cybertron to its earlier glory. However, this also changed him from within, and he was so focused on Cybertron's survival that he did not hesitate to betray the Autobots. He struck a deal with the Decepticons that would secure the future of their home. Megatron became his new ally and tried to trick the Autobots on Earth. Optimus and the other Autobots staged their deaths, and finally they showed up to stop Sentinel's plans. During the Battle of Chicago, he fought Optimus in an intense duel. Their fight was, without a doubt, a classic, and he had pinned down Optimus by cutting off one of his arms. However, Megatron had started to grow paranoid that Sentinel might take over the leadership, and he shot Sentinel from the back. Optimus used the opportunity to shoot Sentinel Prime dead. The Fallen. You could say that the Fallen was the true leader of the Decepticons. He was previously called Megatronus Prime, and he was the master of Megatron. According to him, he and his brothers were the first creations of the Allspark. It is what shaped the barren planet of Cybertron into something inhabitable. Allspark gave the Fallen and his brothers incredible powers, and the cube's energy was depleted. They discovered that if they could harvest the energy of the stars, they could replenish the energy. But locating new stars that would be suitable for them was quite difficult. Even with their powers of traveling between dimensions, they couldn't find adequate ones. At this point, the Fallen started to believe that he was the chosen one by Allspark, and it spoke to him directly. He felt that there was a greater destiny awaiting him, and his ambitions grew to the point where he turned into a dreaded evil force. Allspark even created a race of workers who could transform into different forms and seek out stars for them. However, they did have an ethical code and did not use the stars that had worlds dependent on them. Fallen was not one to be tied down by morals. He felt that their compassion would be the cause of their downfall, and to prevent an unwanted extinction, he came up with some evil plans. If there were no other primes to share the Allspark with, all the power would be his to enjoy. Slowly, he started getting some of the Transformers by his side, and he called them Decepticons. Jetfire was one of his most trusted and capable seeker of planets, and he sowed seeds of mistrust in him. The Fallen even tried building a star harvester all on his own, but it proved to be unstable. It caused an explosion that infused the Decepticon with some dark powers, and he became absolutely heartless and maniacal after that. When they all decided to harvest the sun for its energy, Jetfire finally turned against him. However, by now, he was way too powerful, and all the primes fell to him one by one. The last prime fled, and he went after him. Soon he realized that the last prime was not stalling, but collecting the bodies of his defeated brothers. He then used their combined life force to banish the Fallen forever and sent him to another dimension. Several thousand years later, he was unearthed on modern-day Cybertron, and the military leader Megatron witnessed the fury and vengeful feelings within. The Fallen then established contact with Megatron and manipulated him to take control of Cybertron. You could say that he orchestrated the evil forces like a puppet master. Megatron. Megatron has been a common villain, seen as the primary antagonist in the first film and the secondary villain in the next two. He was reborn as Galvatron in the fifth and continued his villainous ways. We cannot imagine a greater nemesis of Optimus Prime, and this leader of the Decepticons has been a constant threat. However, his origin tells a very different story. He grew up as a friend of Optimus's, and while Optimus was the head scientist of the Cybertronian Scientific Division, he became the High Protector and Commander. It was only after his association with the Fallen that he was corrupted, and eventually he was convinced that the Allspark should be all his. When he and his accomplices tried to seize it, Optimus and the other Autobots offered a strong resistance, and this was the beginning of the Great Cybertronian Conflict. Towards the end of the war, Megatron successfully captured Bumblebee but failed to kill him. The Autobots stepped in just in time and launched the Allspark into deep space so that it didn't fall into his hands. Megatron tried to follow it, but he crash-landed on Earth and ended up in the Arctic region. His search was interrupted because he froze inside the icy terrain. During an Arctic expedition, Megatron was discovered, and finally he was dug out by the US government. He was kept in cryostate for another 72 years, and in 2007, one of the Decepticons named Frenzy infiltrated this facility. Megatron was thawed, and he learned that the humans had moved the Allspark.
Where is the cube? The humans have taken it.
He started off towards the location, and just as the Decepticons attacked, Optimus challenged Megatron, thus continued the enmity that raged on for all the movies. He was disgusted with the empathy that Optimus had for the humans, and Optimus was always the righteous protector. Shockwave. Shockwave was one of the strongest assassins used by Megatron, and this deadly Decepticon was also a scientist. He was logically driven, and his cold-hearted nature made him a potent assassin. This mean killing machine commanded respect among the Decepticons, and he was easily one of the strongest. Some believe that even he could take down the mighty Megatron as well. The Decepticons often willingly worked for him out of fear and respect. Shockwave doesn't shy away from destruction, and any Autobot standing in his way would face his wrath. He can transform into a Cybertronian tank, and his arm-mounted astromag cannon is a devastating weapon. Back in the times when Cybertron was struggling with the absence of a star and a missing Allspark, Shockwave rallied behind Sentinel Prime. Later, he joined the likes of Megatron and Optimus and repelled the attacks on the planet. Sentinel Prime finally located the lost Allspark, and Shockwave wasn't happy with the development because he did not know his purpose any longer. As it turned out, Shockwave was happier with the conflict because it gave him thrills. Soon, Megatron manipulated him by revealing that Sentinel was going to make Optimus Prime the new leader. Eventually, he joined the defense forces led by Megatron, and in search of the Allspark, he crash-landed on the Earth in Siberia. He was later revived by Megatron and became the killing machine that he always was. Besides his cannon, Shockwave also used a multi-rocket launcher and his arm blade in fights. He was a fierce combatant and one of the toughest opponents that Optimus Prime had to deal with. After an intense fight, Optimus managed to kill him and used his cannon to destroy the control pillar that led to a victory for the Autobots. Berserker. He isn't called Berserker for nothing. This guy has an insatiable thirst for violence, and he is a deadly ball of destructive energy. Anything that gets in his way is ripped apart, and even his allies are wary of his maniacal rage. This notorious Decepticon was seen in the movie Transformers: The Last Knight, and it is almost miraculous that he was ever captured by humanity. Since then, he has been struggling in captivity, and he threatens his captors with gruesome consequences. Unfortunately, his threats and aggression only leads to stronger restraints, and he keeps getting angrier. This vicious cycle continues, and Berserker continues with his graphic threats. Megatron wants this Decepticon fighting for him, but he is well aware of Berserker's psychotic rage and knows that it is a tough task to tame the beast. He is one of the surviving Transformers of the Battle of Chicago, and after his capture, he was kept carefully since everyone knew him to be a psycho. There is an instance where one of his captors removed his mouthpiece, and Berserker said that he would suck his brain. When Megatron was negotiating the release of a few Decepticons with the TRF, he wanted Berserker to be released, but the captors did not relent.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, no, there are limits.
Megatron realized that there was a high price attached to the release of this powerful Decepticon, and went on to name another one instead. It is fitting that the makers named him Berserker, after a Norse warrior who is known to have fought with uncontrolled ferocity. Galvatron. He is a rare achievement from Kinetic Solutions Incorporated, a man-made transformer. It was made from bits and pieces of Megatron's former body, and many believed Galvatron to be a form of Megatron. It was reverse engineered and several of his features were included in Galvatron. However, the plan turned on its head when the dark influence that the Fallen had placed all over the corpse seized this new body as well. It was turned into a Decepticon and made him almost invincible. Besides the devastating attacks, Galvatron has the most unique form of defense. To evade a strike, he could split into a cloud of transformium and avoid damage. He is without any empathy, and his lust for power is simply incredible. Even his own subordinates are not safe from his extreme rage. It all started after the Battle of Chicago when Megatron was defeated. Humans working with Deathstroke came up with a bot that was designed to be even more powerful than Megatron, and this is how Galvatron was conceived. Galvatron has all the abilities that Megatron had, and his knowledge is also parallel. Although he retains the memories of Megatron, his personality underwent a significant upgrade. He joins the Decepticon forces and plans to use Deathstroke's technology against the creators. They want a new Decepticon army, and Galvatron is of course the expected leader.
You deserve a better death. Then again.
Shatter. We saw this Decepticon triple changer in the movie Bumblebee, and she was sent to hunt down the Autobot Bumblebee on Earth. She had a partner for the mission named Dropkick, but she was clearly the brains among the duo. She is shown to be extremely manipulative, and her strategies are well thought. Back in the day, when the Cybertronian War came to an end, she and the other Decepticons had surrounded Optimus Prime. However, he managed to escape, and Shatter and Dropkick were tasked with bringing down the Autobots who retreated. Shatter was particularly sadistic and cunning, and she allows Dropkick to deal with most of the violence. In the year 1987, they landed on one of Saturn's moons, and they found the Autobot Lieutenant Cliffjumper. They tried to gather information about Prime, but Cliffjumper refused to speak, even after some torturous methods implemented by Dropkick. But when he received a message from Bumblebee, Shatter got to know about his presence on Earth. The duo delivered a horrible death to Cliffjumper by bisecting him vertically, and then they traveled to the Blue Planet. They started to track Bumblebee using the signal, and we saw her manipulative side during the journey. When they ran into the US military force, she quickly claimed that they were Decepticons on a peacekeeping mission.
We are Decepticon peacekeepers, patrolling the galaxy.
What are you doing?
She even coaxed them to allow her the use of human satellites so that she could hunt down the traitor. Dropkick simply wanted to kill them all, but Shatter showed her intelligence by using force only when necessary. Shatter's fight with Bumblebee was simply epic, and she had him pinned down, but he managed to fire at the dam just in time, and finally Shatter was crushed after being slammed into the dock by the force of the water. Lockdown. Lockdown is a notorious Decepticon bounty hunter who is seen in Transformers: Age of Extinction. He makes his debut when he catches humans attacking Ratchet, an Autobot. He watches the events closely, and when the opportunity arises, he shoots him in the He is offered to spare his life if he divulges Optimus Prime's location, but Ratchet is a loyal soldier and refuses, causing Lockdown to rip out his spark.
Never is.
We saw him attacking Optimus Prime when he was trying to escape from the military. Later, Lockdown again attacked Optimus while he was engaged in a fierce battle against Galvatron. Lockdown had some deadly weapons in his arsenal. He used face cannon, a spark extractor gun, shoulder-mounted missile launchers, and his deadly laser cannon. It was so cool to see him transform into a Lamborghini Aventador LP704. He successfully captured Optimus, but Optimus managed to escape without his knowledge. Lockdown proved to be quite a handful for the Autobots, and finally Optimus stabbed him in the back. His head was then smashed and Lockdown was killed after putting up a great fight. Blackout. Blackout might have been a Decepticon, but he was one of the most loyal subjects. He was always hovering around Megatron, and his only purpose was to serve him in the field. This powerful robot could transform into an MH-53 helicopter, and he was seen in the original Transformers movie. Blackout was flying to the US Socsent based in Qatar, and he refused to identify himself. As a result, 2 F-22 jets were scrambled to intercept this mysterious chopper. The pilots reported the registry number to be that of a helicopter that had been destroyed 3 months ago, and this further added to their suspicions of some kind of foul play. At this point, Blackout transformed and attacked those who intercepted him. He even made his way to the operations bunker and quickly tried downloading some of the classified data. He had a symbiotic companion called Scorponok, and in a fit of rage, he sent him to deal with the threat. He killed just about everyone in his way and then flew to the United States to answer the call of Starscream, who ordered the Decepticons to mobilize. Even then, Blackout's loyalty to Megatron was clear, and he screamed "All hail Megatron" just to show whom he actually answered to. It took something special to deal with this powerful Decepticon, and a sabot round fired at his crotch combined with hits from F-22s did the trick. He was destroyed, and his remains were thrown into the Laurentian abyss.
You're mine.
Soundwave. The Decepticons would be nowhere near as coordinated as they were without Soundwave. He was the communications officer and a fierce follower of Megatron. Soundwave was positioned in the upper atmosphere, and he became the true eyes and ears for the villains. He could process millions of data streams at a single moment, and for him, communications could take over a planetary scale. He had several minions working for him, and Ravage, Rumble, Ratbat are some of his trusted workers. Soundwave's association with Megatron goes back to the Unification Day on Cybertron. A new era of government was being welcomed, and Soundwave was an integral part of Megatron's defense force. After Megatron was influenced by the Fallen, Soundwave became the captain of the new spacecraft Nemesis. Except for the shielded Autobot base, he could receive transmissions from just about anywhere. This makes him a deadly spy, and his outward personality is fun to observe. Many Decepticons see him as a two-faced personality, but Soundwave fiercely guards his hierarchy among the ranks. His cassette troops can carry out all kinds of tasks, and these are his personal army of spies. Dropkick. We have already spoken about Shatter, the Decepticon triple changer, and Dropkick was her trusted ally. He was the muscle and the aggressive one among the duo. There have been instances where Shatter managed things without violence, but Dropkick was always eager to pick up a fight. Just like Shatter, he was sent to track down Bumblebee, and Dropkick is known to harbor an incredible hatred for the Autobots. He loathes their heroics, and any act of good is simply humiliating for him. During the war on Cybertron, Dropkick fought alongside Shatter against Optimus Prime. However, they failed to contain Optimus and he escaped. He was ruthless while interrogating Cliffjumper on one of Saturn's moons. While Shatter questioned him, Dropkick ripped out his arms to make him reveal the location of the other Autobots. He keeps stabbing Cliffjumper to worsen his pain, and eventually they intercept a signal from Bumblebee. Dropkick bisected Cliffjumper vertically to make him suffer a painful death. When the duo arrives on Earth, Dropkick takes the form of a blue and black AMC Javelin muscle car. He is disgusted with the humans and wants to kill them all. Later, while interrogating Bumblebee, he was seen implementing similar violent moves that we are used to seeing. His intense hate for B is obvious from the way he mocks him and beats him up. This hate-filled Decepticon had a satisfying death when chains were used to tear him apart.
You can't hide, boy!
Starscream. Starscream, Megatron's air commander, has been one of the most common villains in the Transformers series. However, he wasn't as loyal to Megatron as he seemed to be. He did suck up to his boss, but secretly he wished to overthrow him someday. His ambitious attempts did not go down well with Megatron, and Starscream was punished for his audacity. Much before the Civil War ravaged Cybertron, Starscream was protecting a hatchling school trip when a subterranean monster attacked. Shockwave and Megatron came to his rescue, and the latter was impressed by Starscream's feisty attitude. With time, he was included to be a member of Megatron's forces, and since then, he has been a part of numerous epic fights against the Autobots. Starscream did have incredible strength and speed, but he was no match for Optimus Prime. You could say that by Cybertronian standards, he is not that powerful, but his power-hungry nature makes him quite deadly. He could be quite unpredictable, and he did not shy away from his own men as well. He could transform into a lethal fighter jet, and he served as Megatron's second-in-command on Earth. In Transformers Dark of the Moon, his head was blown off by a boomstick and he met with his end. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
Is Optimus Prime. Never.